have an F by your name or bust, right? That doesn't make any sense because what we're trying to say is, if you are with us and you're forward thinking and you believe in the forward attitude of having election reform and just, fixing the system, hell yeah, we'll endorse you, we'll support you. I don't think there's anything that's, if you don't abide by, joining Forward Party and having that be next to your name on the ballot, that's never going to be the condition. And if it is, we need to really figure out what the hell we're doing. But we're definitely not going to do that. So I'm going to bring this back to leadership, what we're all talking about, because I think that's something we really need to think about. You shouldn't have to, Joe, be like, hey, I believe in everything Forward Party's doing, but they're not going to help me or support me unless I, you know, declare as a forwardist or as a forward member. That doesn't make sense. So hopefully that helps answer some questions.
Yeah, and I think people want to see that too. I think people are going to respond well to seeing like, oh, look at these, third parties supporting each other. They're all, united behind the same ideals. They're showing us that, the truth is that we all really want the same things. And, this culture war is not, most people are not on board with this. And also, Joe, yeah, as Ali was saying, please, don't shut up. You're not taking over the space or anything. You're giving some really great insights here.
Yeah, I mean, just personally, if you were in Texas instead of Florida, like, I mean, I'd love to vote for you as a forward candidate. I don't know. I think a lot of the forwardists I bump into would be like, heck yeah. I mean, libertarian, but if you're about ranked choice voting, star voting, equal access, open primaries, and ending gerrymandering, like, let's do it. I'm all about that.
Something I want to flag too. This came up, I think, in one of our last spaces. People were like, "Oh, cool," and this is a fair criticism. People were like, "Oh, cool. So you're gonna allow somebody who's anti-Semitic and an extremist and a racist be a forward candidate if they like RCV?" Hell no. Like, there's way more to it than that. If you have hate on the ballot, if you're an extremist, if you promote violence, if you are bigoted and you are you know, undermining or, just being awful towards minorities or anybody. No, you're not a forwardist. So that's another thing Forward Party draws the line on. Just want to make that clear.
Thank you so much. And I just, I jump in. I say this a lot, but Joe's jumping in, and he's running for offices and stuff like that. He's the change that he wants to see. You can do that too. You can run for an office in your local area, and Ford wants to help you be able to do that. So we're open to anybody who wants to come up and speak. Go ahead and request the mic, and we want to hear what you think. We want to hear your ideas.
And building off that too, I think I think a lot of parties tend to make a mistake when they focus on the highest prize, or like the presidential election or a Senate race, or these national elections. That it's if you're a minor party, that's more of a Hail Mary than a plan. And like we're talking about these local elections, that's where I think we can start to build a base, and that's where I think third parties can kind of get a foot in the door and change people's lives, because local elections are the things that determine a lot of day-to-day policies that impact people's lives. And if they start seeing third parties create this coalition in that area, it offers legitimacy. You change people's lives in a way they can feel day to day. There's a lot of impact. There's a lot of potential there. Marcus, welcome to the space. Would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, hello. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm a originally German chap who lives in the US since 22 years. I'm a US citizen, and I'm a physician. And I do think that I really think that the third party will add to all the issues, or not add, sorry, will solve a lot of the issues we face. And so I'm really eager, and I'm in Western New York, and I'm working with the main person here together to make that happen. And I'm very excited about it, and I'm looking forward to meet some of you maybe at the convention next year in Manhattan. And I'm a physician, so I would like to put in my knowledge about healthcare, and comparing that with Germany and adding some features which I think would be helpful. And so I'm very energetic about it. I'm doing very well. I could just move to Florida and do sailing for the next 20 years of my life, but I would rather do something for the country I live and where I think this is my almost like patriotic pride to do something for the community which gave me a lot, and I would like to add something for our society.
Marcus, I love that. That is exactly the kind of energy, we want to build here at Forward. Thank you so much. Did you say you are connected with Forward people in New York?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working with the local guy here in Buffalo, New York, and we'll do all the best we can do to energize people and come together. And it's not just building a party; it's building a movement. I think a movement to be pragmatic, to be solution orientated, to be inclusive. And yes, I do think, and to be including people to participate in democracy. And I think that's really what it's all about. And I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love that. That's exactly the energy, the spirit we want to hear. Ariel, would you like to go ahead? And then I want to let Dr. Ryan get in here.
I'll reiterate what Joe had to say. That why is every third party concentrating on the presidential before like these local things? It was funny. What my first Andrew Yang rally, I was at his thing, and I said build a foundation and rise to the occasion. So all these other parties aren't building a foundation at all. They just think they're rising when there has to be some kind of like cement under there. That's like, okay, so we have this like 50-story building we want to build in New York. Let's start on the roof, and then we'll start on the first floor after we build the roof. What kind of idea? That's like completely ridiculous. So when everybody says, what about the presidential? What about the presidential? Ask them, so if I'm building a building, should I start on the roof first or should I start on the bottom floor? What do you think? And just ask them that. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think, I think if we're going after something like a presidential race, it's just all or nothing. If you lose, then, people just kind of view your party the same way as like, oh, they're doing the same thing. The claim, a lot of people make the claim of like, you're grifters, you're trying to make money. I wouldn't have much to say to defend if we were just running a presidential campaign. It would be like, yeah, that's not a plan. So you're totally right, Ariel. I think it's absolutely about building that foundation.
Yeah, and I just wanted to jump in and say, it's all this type of talk. I think used to be a little more confusing to me back when I was new. I was like, what? Why wouldn't you run a presidential candidate? But one of the things about politics is, your local candidates, your state level candidates, et cetera. It's kind of like the minor leagues, right? Like the lower leagues in a professional sports organization. If 10 years from now, Forward has, a lot of local and state level candidates or something like that around the country, those are people who are learning the skills that you need to have to be political, right? I mean, the political sector in some senses is a lot like any other sector where there's certain local candidates are learning how to connect with people, they're learning how to solve people's problems, they're learning how to speak and interact with media, and that gives us a talent bench that can then be those people can then try out for the larger and larger offices. So if you're wondering, if you're scratching your head at this type of thing, it really is important to kind of get people who are talented into these smaller scale roles, and it's really good that we're doing that.
Yeah, it's all about building the foundation. If you don't have a foundation, then nothing else is going to come from it. I want to toss it over to Dr. Ryan Starzyk. I hope I pronounced that right.
You got it right. Thank you for that. And thank you for hosting this. This is wonderful to see that there's so much engagement and interest. And, personally, I am very interested in this movement, and especially on your discussion around local candidates, because I ran for state senate a couple years ago and I had zero support from the establishment party. I was running against somebody who's been there for a long time. What I want to know from Forward Party is, are you going to be seeking out local candidate level Are you going to be seeking out the one that's most likely to win, one that raises the most money, or are you going to try and pursue the underdogs to give them a little bit of a boost to maybe encourage to do it a second or third time and try to get in?
Ali, do you want to
Yeah,
speak to that?
I'm definitely the latter. It really doesn't matter, who's the big name on the ticket, who's going to win. Sure, it would be wonderful to support people who like ideologically align with us and support ranked choice voting and nonpartisan primaries. But as we all know, it's going to be an uphill battle. So yeah, we're totally supporting the underdogs. We supported a lot of underdogs in this past midterm election, and we really encourage them to keep going, keep doing it again. January Walker comes to mind. She's amazing, and I think she's going to continue to make amazing waves. She ran in Utah, and she, not that she, she's an underdog in the sense that what she's doing is what we need, and it's completely new. The things that she's proposing, and we're going to champion her and help her in any way we can.
Yeah, I mentioned, if you have a candidate who doesn't win the race, they can still have a big impact. I mean, I think even just since Forward had the big merger over the summer, I feel like the two parties are trying to change their strategies to adopt to what Forward is doing and try to appeal to the sort of person who finds Forward appealing. So if you run and you lose, that doesn't mean that it's a net, a total loss or anything like that. You're shifting people's mindsets. You're forcing the other parties to adapt and work around your strategies. The tragedy for the duopoly, of course, is that if they try to adapt to fit our strategy, they just have to wind up doing what we want, which is getting rid of gerrymandering, installing ranked choice voting, and all these things. So they just at that point, then they're just kind of doing what we want for us. So we kind of win either way. But it's so just it's you don't have to be discouraged if a candidate like January runs and doesn't crack 51%.
I even think of like Evan McMullin rather in Utah as well. He didn't win, but he damn, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Actually, he made a really big impact. He did a lot better than any independent has done in history. So, yeah, we're all about supporting the people who align with what we're all about.
Evan decades too. I think you have to go back to like 1972 to see the last time a Democrat did as well as Evan did, and Evan was an independent. So even if he didn't win, it shows he clearly did a lot better than the partisan candidate did. And with January's race too, she was able to get on the debate stage. I mean, that was incredible. The Republican candidate in her race declined to show up for the debate, and so she was able to be up there with just the Democratic candidate and get her voice heard. Call out the Republicans, say, "I'm up here debating. Where are you guys? What are you guys doing?" Ryan, I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely does. Thank you for that. And it's very encouraging to hear because I know that the party politics in any state is going to dominate the discussion. And if we don't get those fresh voices that align with the important values that you're discussing right now, if we don't get those fresh voices out there talking about it, or at least give them a little support to make them feel like keep going, a small endorsement can make a big difference in somebody's campaign from what I've seen. So it's good to hear that.
Yeah, and not just that, but the continuity that Forward is going to provide, right? I mean, so if you run as an independent candidate and you get Forward support, right? There's a big difference between that and running as an independent candidate by yourself, right? If you run by yourself, that's a heroic effort and that's a lot of work. But at the end of your campaign, it's hard to know, where do we go from here? Whereas with Forward, if you run and you go real hard and you get good but not quite up to 51%, well, afterwards you've got a coordinated group in years. You've got groups of people who have connected, and I think that's one of the big benefits of Forward is we're connecting and we're going to stay connected, and that network will be very useful even if we have a tough race.
Excellent to hear.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm an example of that. I a couple of years ago jumped on board Andrew Yang's campaign, his presidential campaign. Worked for that. I went to Iowa and New Hampshire. And then after he dropped, I didn't stop there. I'm right here with Forward. I've learned from that. I grew. I'm, better than I was 2 years ago, and Forward's going to do better.
Good.
Yeah, this is something we can build over time. So Green TV, do you want to go ahead and speak?
Hey, good points you guys are making. So one thing about talking about having the third parties involved and the ballot access, let's make sure we get participation in debates as one of the criteria that, I mean, even the big two parties will avoid debates with each other. So it's pathetic that the citizens don't get to hear from these folks. They are elected to represent us, so they should be letting us know how they think, what's their stand on term limits and stuff. And by the way, I think there's some forward people already involved here in South Carolina. We have a rally on January 23rd. It's 1-2-3 day. Ranked choice voting. We're trying to get some sponsors in the South Carolina Assembly. So that and the gerrymandering is terrible in this state. So we're working on those issues, but it's a state by state. I mean, I applaud you guys at Forward. You have a national thinking going on, but there is so many state by state battles that we have to all compete and work together with, not compete with each other, but compete against the big two. Because man, they have rigged the game for so long. So I really appreciate you guys being out there and doing this stuff, and don't back off from having someone at the top of the ticket, because even though we do need the locals, the races covered, because here in this state, for instance, 72 out of 124, no major party opposition. The gerrymandering worked so well. So send some people down to Columbia on January 23rd for us, guys. Ranked choice voting will be on the Capitol steps 2 to 4.
Ali, you got that?
On it.
That's awesome. I wonder, do you know a little bit about what Forward's strategy looks like in South Carolina?
I don't think they endorsed any candidates. It would be nice. I mean, I was on the ballot for Congress and I requested, but you guys had your hands full, so you didn't answer everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think building those local coalitions is going to be probably one of the biggest things for the next couple of times. You mentioned the debates a little bit too. I've brought this up before in the spaces, but I think there's an opportunity for Forward and other, not just Forward, like the kind of independent third party sphere, to step in and modernize the debates in the coming years, because you're seeing more and more often that candidates are refusing to participate in debates. I mean, January Walker was an example. She was able to send one of her opponents. The Republican didn't show up, and the Republican Party is saying for even the presidential race